All right, it's the end of April. It's been a good month of reading. I'm looking forward to talking about it. Let's talk about what I read this month here on Drew's Book Reviews. It's the April wrap-up. Well, it's the end of April, and as is tradition at the end of each month, I'm going to talk about the books that I have read this month and how I'm doing on my Goodreads reading goals for the year. And of course, before we get into that, don't forget, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe if you like this bookish type of content. And there will be links in the description below as well for things like Discord, Patreon, Bookstagram, all that good stuff. So be sure to go and check that out. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how my reading for the month of April went. In the month of April, I completed reading 6 books, read a couple of short stories, and I'm currently working on about 3 other books right now as well. 3 to 4 other books right now as well. So that is a really quick summary of what I did in April. So let's talk about that. Now, first off, let's talk a little bit about my Goodreads goal. So I'd set a target of 75 books to read this year in 2022. So far, I'm sitting at 25 books read of 75. So I'm 1/3 of the way through, which is right on target because we're about a third through the year. So I am right on track to hit that 75 reads for the year, which is just awesome. So, when it comes to setting goals for anything, I always want to make sure those goals are realistic and achievable. And I think this is definitely achievable, and I'm right on track to hit that 75 books read for the year, which is just awesome. And I'm so glad to see that I'm on track. So let's talk about what I read for the month of April. So starting out the month of April, I am reading along with H.P. Lovecraft. Well, not reading along, but reading H.P. Lovecraft. So this year, I am really enjoying getting into the works of H.P. Lovecraft, who is like a classic writer when it comes to the horror genre, especially the horror short stories. Horror generally isn't my genre that I prefer. I'm definitely more science fiction and fantasy primarily. So reading that horror genre is definitely not something that I find myself doing with any regularity, but I am really enjoying H.P. Lovecraft. And this month I've got 2 stories that I read in this one, The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls, that I really enjoyed this much. I do have a video coming out with The Lurking Fear in a little bit eventually, talking a little bit about that, so stay tuned for that. But overall, there's this idea of The Lurking Fear of having this constant haunted feeling and this haunted house creepy feeling, and The Rats in the Walls is pretty creepy as well, with that, just the terror that it invokes within his stories is just so well done, and I'm really enjoying that. So The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls, both of which were really good short stories. The Rats in the Wall has a cannibalistic nature to it in a way, which is in and of itself is something that is a classic horror trope, but done really well with H.P. Lovecraft as always, and I'm really enjoying his short stories for this year. So The Rats in the Walls and The Lurking Fear, great reads. Again, stay tuned. I do have another H.P. Lovecraft video coming out eventually, either later in May or early June, but I do have an H.P. Lovecraft video coming out. It's been a while since I've done one, so stay tuned for that and definitely check that out. So H.P. Lovecraft, The Lurking Fear and The Rats in the Walls were the 2 short stories that I started with this month. One of the other books that I finished this month was The Emperor of Thorns. So The Emperor of Thorns is the 3rd book in the Broken Empire trilogy. This is a post-apocalyptic world and a vengeance tale of a boy prince who is trying to seek revenge and establish himself as emperor. And he's been spurned, essentially, and he is wanting that revenge, and he's angry and hostile. And it's a good story. It's a revenge story. I really didn't feel like his character really developed a whole lot. He's the same kind of character, I felt, at least, from the beginning to the end. There are certainly some events in his life that kind of changed where he's directing his anger and hostility, for sure. But I really don't feel he was much different at the end than he was at the beginning. So I really felt it was more of a narrative-driven story than a character-driven story, which it's still a good story. Like, I did enjoy it, but definitely for this series as a whole, it's more of a 3 out of 5 in my feeling on this overall. So not the greatest, but certainly a far cry from the worst as well. So that's Mark Lawrence's Broken Empire. I do have other Mark Lawrence books which I intend to get to eventually, so I liked it enough to keep reading Mark Lawrence. It's still good. I do believe this falls under, a lot of people consider this grimdark. I'm definitely enjoying it. I'm enjoying Mark Lawrence as a whole. Maybe one day I'll get back to rereading this. Maybe I'll feel differently then. Who knows? But yeah, there we go. Emperor of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. And of course, every month I am reading some Discworld, so of course I had to pick up Carp Jugulum by Terry Pratchett from the Discworld book series. This is a hilarious series of books, Discworld. I'm absolutely loving it. So be sure to check out my Discworld playlist. You can see lots of videos that I've made on Discworld books. Carp Jugulum has to do with witches and vampires and babies, and it's hilarious. As always, why? Why is it hilarious? Because it is Terry Pratchett, who is hilarious, especially when it comes to all the crazy people and things going on in his books. I mean, one comment in this by one of the vampires is, geez, you tell people you're a vampire and suddenly they start treating you like a monster. Like, what gives? Well, duh, you're a vampire. Vampires are monsters. So it's just really funny how the vampires in this, they're really just looking to be accepted by society and treated as normal, and they're trying really hard to fit into society while still recognizing their inherent nature as vampires. So it's really interesting the way this is written in a humorous way that, like typical Terry Pratchett, really gets you to think about how we judge others who may seem different than us. Yes, even though they're vampires. So some of the other ones that I finished up this month is I actually finished up the Gods of Blood and Powder series. So with Wrath of Empire along with Blood of Empire. Now this was actually the viewer's choice vote on what you wanted to see me do a review on for my reads in the month of April. So stay tuned for that. That is coming up. That'll be posted by May 15th, my viewer's choice review on Gods of Blood and Powder series, specifically finishing up with Blood of Empire. So definitely make sure that you stay tuned for that. And if you want to see it, of course, hit that subscribe and bell notification so you know when that goes up. And so yeah, viewer's choice review, that's coming up, is on the Gods of Blood and Powder, which is the second trilogy in the Powder Mage world by Brian McClellan. Another really great series that I think you should check out if you have not already. Powder Mage is really an awesome world, divided up amongst privileged and gods and powder mages and knacked and magic derived from gunpowder and all kinds of awesome stuff. Military fantasy, great read, love it. Check it out if you have not already. One of the other books I finished up in April, Michael Crichton, The Andromeda Evolution, a novel by Daniel H. Wilson. This was good, though it did have some drawbacks. Again, this is a review that is going to be coming up on my channel, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. That will be coming up eventually in the coming weeks, my review on Michael Crichton, The Andromeda Evolution. This is one of the other ones that had some votes on the viewer's choice, I believe, if I remember correctly. And just so you know, if you want to vote on what to read or what you want to see me review, that will be a monthly poll put up on the first of each month. So make sure you check that out on the community tab. But in any case, The Andromeda Evolution, Michael Crichton, Daniel H. Wilson. Enjoyable read. Definitely really felt very much like Michael Crichton's story, but still had some things in it that kind of, I didn't really like the way they were done. So stay tuned for my review on that one. One of the other books, my nonfiction read of the month, was Kindred, Neanderthal, Life, Love, Death, and Art. I'm not doing a dedicated review on this one, but it is an interesting read, kind of getting more information on the Neanderthal. So this is, as pretty much everybody knows, Neanderthals were a human species that has gone extinct. So learning more about them and their history and what they were like was a really interesting read, and I really enjoyed learning more about the Neanderthal through Neanderthal, Life, Love, Death, and Art. So definitely, if you are interested in that subject, this is a good read to really get more insight into that. How they're definitely much smarter group of humans than maybe we originally thought. They had more culture, more sophistication to them than we might have originally thought of this. Typical personified, just these, primitive, brute, Stone Age group of people. They're definitely not the typical caveman persona. So good read if that is something that you are interested in. And that, of course, brings us to what am I reading right now? I am still reading along, chugging along in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. This is the series that I'm currently reading to my daughter, who is thoroughly enjoying this series. Gandalf and Frodo, of course, being her favorite characters from this book series. I mean, who could blame her? Those are two pretty cool characters. So we're still chugging along in this one. I'll probably finish this up in April. We are getting very close to the end of it, with just that little bit left. So we're looking forward to finishing that up so we can move on to The Two Towers. But yeah, we're currently reading The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and I expect to finish this up early May, and then moving on to The Fellowship of the Ring. Or, not The Fellowship of the Ring, that's what we're reading right now. Moving on to The Two Towers shortly after that. So definitely looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to finishing this series with my daughter so that we can go ahead and watch the movies together. We watched the 3 Hobbit movies after reading The Hobbit, and then we're going to read the Lord of the Rings, or watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy after we're done reading The Lord of the Rings, so that is going to be fun. One of the other books that I am currently reading as well is Malazan, Book of the Fallen, Reaper's Gale. So, as of the day of filming this, I'm getting to about the halfway point. There's about 1,280 pages in this one, so these, like all the Malazan books, are some pretty big books. In fact, there's a lot to them. I'm enjoying it, but I'm also at the same time looking forward to completing the series. And then at some point, I do plan on going back and doing a reread, because I've heard so many times that really you don't really start to really appreciate this series in its full context and understanding it until you've read through it a couple of times. I've heard that so many times, so I'm looking forward to doing a reread on Audible at some future date. I have no idea how long it'll take to get to that, but eventually I will. But I'm looking forward to completing my first read through of this series over the coming months. So I am currently working on Reaper's Gale from Malazan, Book of the Fallen. I expect to finish this up in early May. And finally, I started reading New Spring. So this is a book from the Wheel of Time that I have not read. I mean, I've read the entire Wheel of Time series that I have right here, if you can see them. I've read the whole series like multiple times. So it's finally good to get to New Spring by Robert Jordan from the Wheel of Time. I'm really enjoying going back kind of before, you know, Rand and Mat and Perrin and Egwene and Nynaeve and all of them get pulled into this world. Looking forward to going back to when Swan and Moraine were still at the White Tower before leading up to and after the Dragon Reborn is reborn. So that's a good, enjoyable read, and I am really enjoying it. So there you have it. That is what I have read in the month of April. That is what I'm reading right now. And, you know, let me know, how did your reading go in the month of April? What did you read? Have you read any of these books? What do you think of these reads? Let me know down in the comments below. Let me know on Discord if you haven't joined already. The link to join that is in the description below. And let me know what you think and how your April reads went. And, you know, as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't and you like this kind of content. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, keep on reading. Bye.